issues are much bigger than the quarterback. The question that I have, and again, Andrew Berry had a nice draft. I'm not as down on him as many people are, but the question is, you were relying on offensive linemen who've been constantly hurt. Jack Conklin hasn't been able to get through a season healthy. DeJuan Jones hasn't gotten through an NFL season healthy. Posick, Teller, Bitonio are all past 30. Wide receiver, those are my questions. I sat here and said, boy, I'd like for him to get somebody so that Cedric Tillman in my number 2. Cedric Tillman can't stay healthy.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think what you're alluding to is a lot of the roster construction here. And honestly, like, Dave, this is why, like, so let's say they are back next year, right? Like, let's say Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski are both back. Let's say they lean into the idea that, listen, Andrew Berry had a great draft class. Look at that. Look how good this class was. You got at least 4 guys that you feel are part of their future plans in this class alone. And hey, he can do that again in 2026, and they can sort of be back contending quickly. Well, first of all, some of the key positions that this team needs, there's no guarantee that you hit on all that like a similar number of guys next year. There's no guarantee that these quarterbacks are all coming out. There's no guarantee that these quarterbacks are going to be any good yet. Like, I think this class that we were all raving about now, we have some reservations about. Offensive line play in football is like, from college to the NFL, is like worse than ever. There's a few guys that come out every year that you feel like are guaranteed to be good, and then there's a lot of guys that are kind of, you don't know, and then they get to the NFL level and it overwhelms them and they're just not ready for it. Like, the way linemen are trained these days, just it doesn't translate to the NFL all the time. And so there's a lot of sort of ifs, ands, or buts when it comes to the roster continuing to improve. And like, yeah, so they hit on another draft class. Does that mean all of a sudden that this team is back to being a Super Bowl, or maybe not even a Super Bowl, maybe that's too lofty, but like a playoff contending team again, and they're going to win the AFC North and all these different things? Like, that's not a guarantee either. Like, what you're seeing this year, if you feel like this is rock bottom and this is worse than last year, or at least on par with last year, it might still be bad next year, and the Browns still might only win like 5 or 6 games, maybe. Like, I don't know that just because you have another really good draft class means that everything gets fixed and you're right back in contention again. And so then you go into a 3 straight years of losing seasons with this group. And I just don't see, like, we can all fantasize about this light at the end of the tunnel situation. I just don't know, like, how tenable this will be even in another year with these 2 guys in charge. Like, I'm starting to wonder if it's just going to be time to sort of rip off the Band-Aid and go in a different direction, because it's like, no matter how you slice it, next year's going to be another rebuilding year. And so then how many years do you keep touting that before you get kind of tired of it and it's like, okay, now it's time to put up or shut up? That's the big question that I guess I have. So we'll see how the rest of the season goes. If Stefanski gets the nose up on this plane, if they win against Miami, and then maybe they win against the Jets in a couple weeks after that off the bye week, and maybe they can still get themselves above the win total that Vegas put out there, 5.5. Maybe that's enough to sort of save his job and keep the locker room together, and guys don't quit on him, which I still think is always the biggest indictment of a coach, if you lose the locker room.
Yep.
And then he's back next year. But I think right now, I understand all the questions about it, and I sort of feel like at this juncture, unless things really turn around, I don't know if either of these guys are back next year.
My only concern with changing, because we've gone through change, every time you change, different system. So you're going to have to, there's going to be a level of the roster that just doesn't work with what this coach wants to do. So you're going back a step. And I'm not saying that's a reason not to do it, because right now, defense looks good. Offensive line is horrible. It's horrible. You probably need 5 offensive linemen.
Well, and that is the hard thing, right? But off of that, Dave, too, like, think about all the first, maybe not, I think first overall picks, but also just like first round quarterbacks in recent years that have not stayed with their original head coach that drafted them. I think Joe Burrow is the last one that was drafted that still has the same head coach that drafted him. And so, like, if all this is going to lead to you draft a quarterback next year and then all these guys get fired anyway in 2026, and then you're setting that quarterback back into, like, what's the point? What's the point in that? You know what I mean? So that's where I think this gets really complicated. And I'm not saying to fire everybody. Like, I want to see these guys succeed. I genuinely like Andrew Berry. I genuinely like Kevin Stefanski. I think Andrew Berry showed that with this last draft that he does have an eye for talent. He obviously hasn't hit on certain position groups, and the offensive line and wide receiver are 2 of them. And I do think Stefanski still generally is a respected offensive mind in this league, and we've seen it have success here when you have the right players in place. But the fact that it's taken 6 years and you don't seem to have the right players that you want to run your system, you ran certain guys out of town that maybe weren't a fit for your system, and it was working better with them, and you still haven't figured this thing out. Like, I just don't know where else to point. So at some point, that sort of toll comes due, and I just am starting to wonder if it's going to be this season or at the end of the season.